Hi, so welcome everybody. This is Ayya Sudhamma from Charlotte Buddhist Vihara, saying a little teaching for Vesak. I hope all is going well for you on this as this auspicious full moon draws close. And today I want to share a little bit with you on the topic of Vesak. You've probably all been told about Vesak's meaning already. I'm going to zero in on the Buddha's enlightenment, that he was enlightened under a full moon of May, and talk about how he failed, and also talk about how the Arahants failed. And you might be going, what? How can she say the Lord Buddha failed? How can she say that the Arahants failed? Because they failed. They failed again and again and again. That moment of enlightenment came one time. How many lifetimes came before that? How much effort came before that? The Buddha said that from the time he made his determination that he was going to try to become enlightened, when he became a bodhisattva, the number of lifetimes that he lived striving and developing selflessness, developing wisdom, developing characteristics conducive towards enlightenment, such as patience and truthfulness and so forth, was 2 incalculable periods and 100,000 lifetimes. So life after life, that goal that he had of overcoming samsara, overcoming the horrors of pain again and again, the terrors and pains of separations from loved ones, temporary separations, permanent separations, separation by death. Like either you die or your loved ones die first, like whichever it is, generation after generation, life after life, and all of the ups and downs of life in between those times of death and rebirth. So he failed at every step of the way. Of course, his failures were not really failures. They were steps on the path for him, the extraordinary bodhisattva path towards enlightenment. I want to share with you some of his efforts in this lifetime. I'm going to share screen and bring up. So from Middle Length Discourses number 12, the Mahasihanada Sutta, the Buddha, oh, excuse me, I need to shift this out of, I guess I'll have to leave the Pali. I can't see how to shift it with, excuse me a second. Ah, that's fine. I'm going to take off the Pali just to make it easier to read. So he already knew that immersion in sense pleasures that he had been experiencing is not going to be the way to enlightenment. He got that. He thought the other way must be the path. After he had tried a couple of meditation teachers, mastered their doctrines, failure, didn't get to some lasting permanent salvation state. And so I am scrolling now. It's a long sutta, back to the place I had it before. Okay. Share. Okay. So he said he used to live rough, the ultimate living of roughness, the ultimate self-mortifier, living in disgust at sin, ultimate seclusion as well. This is what my self-mortification was like. I went naked, ignoring conventions. I licked my hands. He was very restrictive about the food that he took. At some points, he fed only on one saucer a day, sometimes eating only once a day, or even up to once a fortnight. He tried restricting his diet to particular foods. At one point, he survived on forced roots and fruits, or eating only fallen fruit. He restricted the kind of clothing that he had. He tore out his hair and beard. He was committed to that practice. He did a practice of standing all the time. So each practice that he took up, he tried it out. It didn't work. He moved on. So anybody who was there with him, see, this is what I want to do. I want to put us there. We know the end of the story. We don't know the end of our own stories, but we know the end of the story. Yeah, he got enlightened. But let's not just take that for granted, because he had terrible, difficult failures again and again and again. So 2 incalculable periods, 100,000 lifetimes. Finally, he has been reborn as Prince Siddhartha. He's gone forth, and he's doing things like tearing out his hair and beard. Well, that didn't do it. He tried constantly standing. How long would you like to do that? It didn't work. He stopped doing that. He did constantly squatting. How long can you do that? He did that. It didn't work. He had a bed of nails, that is a mat of thorns. He made a mat of thorns his bed. Did you actually ever think how the Buddha had a bed of nails, so to speak? Thorns or nails? He did that. He did water ablutions 3 times a day. And so I live committed to practicing these various ways of mortifying and tormenting the body. Such was my practice of self-mortification. The dirt and dust built up on his body over years until it was flaking off. This must have been a different time than the going in the water 3 times a day. He did extreme efforts trying not to step on little beings, or even try not to have a drop of water that might have a small being in it. His seclusion was so extreme that he would flee from forest to forest, thicket to thicket, trying to make sure nobody saw him. That was his seclusion. He ate unnatural things. I would go on all 4s into the cow pens after the cattle had left and ate the dung of the young suckling calves. So that would be that particularly sloppy stuff. And as long as his own urine and excrement lasted, he did that. So he tried even that. He was so determined and so desperate. Doesn't have quite the right overtones that I want. He was all in. He was giving it everything he had. A fad would reach his ears, he would try it out. Somewhere in one of these descriptions of his efforts, he heard that maybe you can get enlightened through jujube fruit. So he was pressing jujube fruits. He was drinking jujube juice. He was eating jujube flesh, fruit flesh. I think it's a very bitter fruit, if I'm not mistaken. And so that fad didn't work. He was trying everything. He would go into scary places in the forest, places that would could make people's hair stand on end. He would torment himself by, in the cold spell, when there's snow, he would stay in the open in the night, which would be the most difficult thing to do. He would stay in the forest by day, so not warming himself in the sun. And in the heat, he would do the opposite, where it would be the most difficult. Scorched and defrozen, alone in the awe-inspiring forest, naked, no fire to sit beside, the sage still pursues his quest. He was trying. He made the bones of the dead his pillow. Cowboys went up and physically abused him, but he didn't even allow himself a bad thought about them. So here's the jujube incident. Eating just those jujubes, my body became extremely emaciated. His limbs were like an 80-year-old or a corpse. vertebrae sticking out like beads on a string. He ate so little that his scalp shriveled and withered like a green bitter gourd in the sun and wind. The skin of my belly stuck to my backbone, so that when I tried to rub the skin of my belly, I grabbed my backbone. When I tried to rub my backbone, I rubbed the skin of my belly. Can you imagine? When he tried to relieve his aching arms and legs with his hands, the hair rotted at its roots fell out. He says, when I tried to urinate or defecate, I fell face down right there. So he tried everything a person could do, right up to close to death. He stands up to relieve himself, to toilet, and he falls down. And then again, he had these other fads that he heard. Purity comes from food, live on mung beans, live on sesame, just on rice. And then he would even restrict that. And then eating so little, he got so extremely emaciated and weak. But I did not achieve any superhuman distinction in knowledge and vision. By that conduct, that practice, that grueling work, it failed. So again, all of these things he's doing, failure, failure, failure. So let's see, various ideas that he was told. There were various ideas that he could dismiss intellectually. And so that is some of this description he gave. There's another sutta where he goes into even some more detail. So right up until the very night that he sat down, the day he had realized that, okay, the day came that he realized this is not the path. I believe that is an occasion where he stood up to relieve himself. He fell down on his face. The story goes that an angelic being hurried to his father and said that Prince Siddhartha is dead. His father said, no, he will achieve his aim. But he realized he had gone as far as anyone had gone. He'd gone further than anyone had gone in mortification practices, and the practices had failed. Can you imagine all the investment he had done at this point? Years of practice of mortifying the body, and before that trying out meditation practices that were what was it, perception of nothingness and perception of neither perception nor non-perception states of profound meditation. He had tried all of these things and nothing. He's got nothing to show for it other than having ticked off the boxes that these are not it, but he has nothing to show for it. And he knows that none of that is going to be the path. Then it occurred to me, that occasion in his childhood when he had sat under the Bodhi tree, he had the thought, well, could that be the way? These 4 jhanas, could that be the way? Then he thought, no, that can't be it, because it's sense pleasure. Well, it's pleasure. Well, wait, why am I afraid of pleasure? No, that is not a pleasure to be feared. Then he knew the way to go. He was too weak. He got his strength up. And then finally, under the full moon of May, he sat under the Bodhi tree, and history was made. Right up until the moment that he had settled in and overcome the temptations of Mara, the armies of Mara, where at one point he described them as armies of Mara, as sloth and torpor and greed and ill will and so forth. He had overcome all of that and was quiet, settled. His mind went deep. And then finally, he wasn't failing. Finally, it happened. So I hope nobody found any of that disrespectful. Of course, we cannot describe the Lord Buddha as a failure. But until you hear the end of the story, until he lived that end of the story, that moment of enlightenment, then there was no guarantee. And anyone on looking would say, oh yeah, he's just trying, but he's not making it. He's failing so far. And then again, there are all of these people who have followed him. And there were some very small, rare number, just rare people who heard the teachings and immediately became enlightened, such as Arahant Kema, Bhikkhuni Kema, and what was his name? The one who died at the side of the road before he could ordain. He was the quickest of laymen in understanding the Dhamma, I believe. Not Super Buddha, it was someone else. Oh no, it was Bahia of the Bark clan. So very few got it very quickly. How about Ananda? So many years he served the Buddha. So there were years that they say that he got to the first stage of enlightenment within his first year. And after that, he stalled out. So for years, he did not attain anything. And he would be right there with the Buddha as other people attained enlightenment, one after another after another. And what about Ananda? Nothing. There's some very awkward moments. One time he informed the Buddha that a group of monks had come to pay respects to him. And the Buddha ignored everyone. He's just in meditation. So everybody sits in meditation. And at the first watch of the night, Ananda stirred and again tried to get the Buddha's attention, announcing that these monks were there to greet the Buddha. The Buddha just ignored him, stayed in meditation. Each watch of the night, Ananda did that. In the morning, then the Buddha came out of meditation. Everybody came out of meditation. And the Buddha said, all these monks are arahants, Ananda. If you were an arahant, you would know. We were all, they'd all been together enjoying the bliss of Nibbana. Only Ananda was the one left out. Can you imagine how embarrassing, how awkward, how stressful? So all those years as the Buddha's attendant, he did not make any further, noticeable advancement in stages of enlightenment. It wasn't until the Buddha had passed into parinibbana that Ananda did, but even then, he didn't right away. He was very disturbed at the Buddha's scene of his parinibbana, that the Buddha was passing and he had not yet attained enlightenment. And the Buddha assured him, don't worry, you'll be fine. You will do this. You have all amazing karma. But Ananda was still concerned. And then there were the council of 500 monks was coming up to codify the Buddha's teaching. And somebody kind of provoked Ananda a little bit, saying, 499 Arahant monks will get together and you're the only one who's not an Arahant. He was striving, he was trying, he was failing, until that moment when he gave up and went to get a little bit of rest before the council would begin. And many of us know that, many of you will know that story already. Then at that moment, he finally attained. How about that bhikkhuni? I don't know if anybody would to pull up the citation to it. I'm sorry, I've been sitting here sharing screen all this time while you're looking at the sutta. I apologize. How about that bhikkhuni whose poem starts out 25 years. She had been a bhikkhuni and she cannot recall having peace of mind even for a finger snap. How about that? 25 years? 25 years to be without peace of mind, even for a finger snap? How terrible, how awful. Anyone want to bring that up? Any of my sutta hunters here can, there's more than, I think there's more than one actually. Okay, here's one. This is in the group of 5 verses, the first one, so 5.1, starting at verse number 67. It is 25 years since I went forth. Not even for the duration of a snap of the fingers have I obtained stilling of the mind. Not obtaining peace of mind, drenched with desire for sensual pleasures, holding out my arms, crying out, I entered the vihara. Oh, what a joy she must have been. Can you imagine sharing a monastery with her? Here she comes. Oh my God, here comes, what was her name again? Unknown. Oh God, here she comes again. 25 years the other nuns had to put up with her. Jeez Louise. I went up to a bhikkhuni who was fit to be trusted by me. She taught me, my favorite word, the Dhamma, the elements of existence, the sense bases and the elements. That would be Dhammama Desesi. What is it? Aggregates? Kanda Yatana Dhatuyo. The khandas, the sense bases, and the dhatu elements. Okay. So Dhammama Desesi Kanda Yatana Dhatuyo. Anyway, I'm looking at Ken Norman's translation without the phone. I heard the doctrine from her, sat down to one side, and the rest was history. She even gained supernormal powers and so forth. Then, of course, that was that one who, as a bhikkhuni, Siha, same selection. She's the third one in the chapter of 5 verses, number 77. Afflicted by desire for sensual pleasures because of unreasoned thinking. Previously, I was conceited, being without self-mastery over the mind. She's failing and failing and failing, obsessed by the defilements, giving way to the notion of happiness. I did not obtain peace of mind, being under the influence of thoughts of passion. Thin, pale, and wan, I wandered for 7 years. Being very pained, I did not find happiness by day or night. I bet she was another one that was pretty awesome to have in your monastery. Not. She failed and she failed and she failed, and blessings on those who gave her food anyway, even though she was nobody's favorite nun. In that condition, fortunately, the people continued to feed her, but And then she was completely giving up, even at the point of brink of suicide. And then suddenly her mind was completely released. So I think there was another one real close to that. Here's another failure. Our beloved great elder Patachara, one of the foremost. So she talks about karma, karma, how when you sow the seeds, you reap the benefits. Plow in the field with plows, sowing seeds in the ground, nourishing wives and children. Young Brahmins find wealth. Like, they do what you need to do and they get the results. Why do I, possessed of virtuous conduct, complying with the teaching of the teacher, not obtain nibbana, not obtain quenching? I'm not slack, I'm not puffed up. So Patachara failed again and again and again. Why? Come on, I'm doing it all right. Why isn't this coming through for me? And then she describes her awakening. So I'll give you one more. I want to give you one more example of someone who struggled. And this is, I'm going to share screen again. I can move the images of people out of the way to get to the controls. Okay, share screen. Vangisa was a man who was a great master of poetry, and he went forth and he became fully enlightened, but it didn't just happen overnight. And some of his struggles are recorded in the scripture. Here he turned to Ananda for help. So Ananda is together with Vangisa going into Savatthi for alms. At that time, Venerable Vangisa became dissatisfied as lust infected his mind, and he addressed Ananda in verse. I've got a burning desire for pleasure. My mind is on fire. Please, out of compassion, Gautama, that was family name of Ananda. Tell me how to quench the flames. this is Vangisa could do poetry on the spot, but it's pretty amazing that Ananda just right back at him in poetry as well. Your mind is on fire because of a perversion of perception. Turn away from the feature of things that's attractive, provoking lust. See all conditioned phenomena as other, as suffering and not self. Extinguish the great fire of lust. Don't burn up again and again. So it's someone wants to look at the video later, you can stop in and take a look at the rest of that, the teaching there. So there was more than one occasion when Vangisa was struggling so much. One time with lust, another time with conceit, because I imagine being a extemporaneous poet was highly regarded in that culture. Remember, oral tradition, and he was really good at it. So he was highly conceited. He struggled with conceit. He can struggle with his lust for women. But eventually, after many, many failures, day after day after day of not gaining enlightenment, finally he did. So I just wanted to share this perspective with you folks in celebration of Vesak season and the coming full moon. Remembering that just because you have not attained enlightenment doesn't mean that you're not on the path. We continue on step by step by step. We keep doing the next right thing. We keep, working to drop all the behaviors of our body, speech, and mind that are unenlightened and unenlightening, overcoming the habits, overcoming the wrong perceptions, bit by bit, remove everything that's non-enlightened. And then with what is remaining, then we don't have so many problems anymore. So may your failures, day by day, step by step, bring you to the ultimate success of overcoming your own negativities, overcoming your own greed, hate, delusion, overcoming your own bad habits, and finding beauty and goodness and peace more and more, step by step, day by day, wearing away the negativities like a hand on a tool, wearing away the wood on that handle, usage day by day, eventually attaining highest bliss and peace of Nibbana.